Which was more culturally significant, the Renaissance or Single Ladies by Beyoncé?
In the late 19th century, America was amidst rapid industrialization, which everyone knows is just fancy words for building buildings and work. So, what are you?
I'm Dr. Palermo, and I'm the lead teacher for CTE Cosmetology.
Can you describe the Great Railroad Strike of 1877?
Certainly, it was a pivotal moment in the labor movement. It was the first multi-state railroad strike in the U.S., and it was absolutely wild.
Let's go all the way back to the Panic of 1873. There was a prolonged economic depression in which wages dropped and poverty and homelessness increased.
I have holes in my shirt. I wish I could read. Unfortunately, the bank took that away from me because I was in debt. Excuse me. What does that say?
This? Oh, this says job openings at the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Station.
Several months later.
In 1877, the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Station did an unspeakable act.
Hey, I'm cutting wages by 10%. By all.
What the F? This is the second cut in 8 months. How am I supposed to feed my children, bruh? I'm gonna do something about this. Yo.
On July 16, 1877, the workers of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Station went on strike in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Strikes spread across the nation, involving some 100,000 workers, making it the largest in the country's history at the time and brought major railroad lines to a halt.
We ain't letting these trains leave until the cut is rescinded.
Woo! Boy, no way, boy. I'm calling on my hose. Yo, pull up.
I got you. Oh, get back to work. What? Too late. You're next.
No!
By sending militias to suppress the strike, an estimated 1,000 workers were arrested and 100 died. The 1877 uprising didn't lead to any widespread victories for railroad workers.
So, what was the impact of the strike?
So, she has yet to find her way on set, but she did leave her script here. So, can we get a translator in?
The strike demonstrated the key role that railroad workers played in the United States and the power they held if they stopped working at the same time. The 1877 strike was remarkable in that it involved no national-level organization. Rather, it spread as a spontaneous reaction to pay cuts and poor working conditions during the economic depression. It illustrated the depth of resentment American workers held for their employers.
Thank you, ma'am. The railroad strike of 77 was an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. The clash, the drama, it was like a wrestling match, but in the streets. Well, that was crazy, but not as crazy as me. Ah! Expect the unexpected. Now, let's take a look at the hay markets. Can you tell us where the market was and why they only sold hay?
We should start this Saturday.
What? I'm not doing this.
The protest at the Haymarket Square was organised by labour radicals to the killing and wounding of several workers by the Chicago police during a strike the day before at the McCormick Reaper Works. However, originally a peaceful protest turned into something not good. In fact, it was bad. Police advanced against the protesters. In response, a protester threw a bomb at the police.
8 hours! 8 hours!
Disperse! This is an unlawful assembly.
7 officers and 1 civilian died, which is a lot worse than if nobody died. Chicago officials rounded up 8 scapegoats, for which 7 of them were sentenced to death.
Ooh! The Haymarket affair was like totally a defining moment in labor history, you know? The tensions, the bombs, it was intense, but like the impact, huge. The Haymarket bombing was an alarming symbol of social chaos and radicalism. Crazy, I know.
Workers in the Carnegie steel industry were beginning to face a huge issue in which the contract between the union workers and Carnegie was approaching its conclusion in June of 1892. Henry Clay Frick, the chairman and chief executive of Carnegie Steel, began declaring pay reductions for numerous homestead workers.
Will this day ever end? I think I broke my toe!
I'm sick of this. We want our pay.
Well, that's too bad, because I'm deducting your pay.
Upon the union's refusal to engage in negotiations, Frick closed down the Homestead steel mill and 3,800 workers locked out. Although only approximately 700 of these workers were members of the Amalgamated, the entire group of workers voted in favor of a strike, which had surprised Frick since he had anticipated that only union members would participate.
Look, can you just get out here and help us or something? These bitches be cray.
We'll be there soon.
On the morning of July 6, 1892, around 300 Pinkerton detectives arrived on barges along the Monongahela River. After learning of their approach, thousands of striking workers rushed to the river to prevent them from landing at Homestead.
Oi, bro, you want to scrap? I shake your knee. God bless the president.
What?
An exchange of gunfire ensued between the two groups, with Pinkertons armed with Winchester repeating rifles and workers on higher ground firing upon the barges with antiquated weapons, including an old cannon. Despite raising a white flag multiple times, the Pinkertons ultimately surrendered by early evening.
We surrender.
Get scrapped, bro.
So, what happened after that? So after the striking steelworkers had epically owned the Pinkerton National Detective Agency, the governor of Pennsylvania had dispatched 8,500 National Guard forces to Homestead, imposing martial law on the steel mill and the surrounding...
Okay, but that's not important. Can we get to the point?
Fine. So even though the Homestead workers initially garnered widespread public support, sentiments shifted after their harsh treatment of the Pinkertons.
Yeah, that's not it.
Fine. Frick was assassinated.
Thanks.
Homestead fully resumed operations by mid-August 1892, thanks to approximately 1,700 strikebreakers, including some of the state's first black steelworkers. Many striking workers had returned to work by mid-October, and the Union conceded defeat the following month.
These events reshaped labor rights and the American landscape, leaving a long-lasting legacy for generations to come. What's wrong with doing?
Dust and tore our district to the ground. This is what they do. They just bombed a hospital filled with unarmed men, women, and children. And if you think for 1 second that the Capitol will ever treat us fairly, you are lying to yourselves. We know who they are, and we know what they do. This is what they do. What?
I don't want to be a blooper.
Over there.
Roll.
These events reshaped labor rights and these line. Well, that was crazy, but not as crazy as me.
Crazy, but not as crazy as me.
I have blood loss.
Whoa.
Wait, guys,
Look
I'm having hypo. We're having hypo.
Whoa!